Welcome to the first episode of fasboyRambles by Fastboy Creative. And you probably can guess, I'm Fastboy. Today I'm going to ramble on success. And I chose the topic of success to be my first video podcast, because I felt like this is the place that you get started, right? So when I was a young man trying to decide, what I wanted from life and where I wanted to go, it's really hard to know if you've got there if you don't understand what it means to you to have success. And realistically, that's different for everybody. What I wanted from my life could be very different than what you want from yours, or what somebody else might want from their life for success. So I'll tell you a little bit about me, and since this is my first podcast, I'll probably break up a little bit here, but I'll do my best to stay on task. I feel self-made. I feel like I've had good success. I started out basically with nothing. I did get married early, married my high school sweetheart. We got married when we were 19. We'd been together several years, about 5 years before that. And so we kind of grew up together and have put a lot of effort in to support our common goal of success. And she came from a pretty normal background too. She really didn't have anything, financially to bring to the marriage to begin with either. So we pretty much started out broke. We both worked a part-time job, and I saved enough money basically to have a couple of cars of my interest. You can probably see from the set around me here that I like cars, like anything with an engine on them. So for me, I was driven to have a decent car right out of the gate, and she didn't need to have a car immediately, but it really was before we got married that she had a car of her own. So we started out with 2 cars. We knew that we wanted to have a house as soon as we got married. So we did buy our first house. We moved into it the day we came back from our honeymoon. So that was a pretty fantastic thing for us. It was a small place, but it was something that we could afford. We both had, probably 10-year-old cars, but they were in good shape, and we were able to use them. And we knew that we wanted to have kids. We knew it was important to have, a healthy family. Kind of wanted to live the American dream. And we felt like we were doing pretty good with that. We were young, we were married, we both had cars, we together were able to get our first house. And now we needed to really start to think about, what was success really going to mean for us. And I think for me personally, I'm always have been pretty ambitious. So some of the things I knew for myself was I wanted to be self-employed at some point. I wanted to own a business. I wanted to, be able to live the lifestyle that I wanted to live. I like I said, motorcycles, cars, all that kind of thing. So I wanted to be able to buy those things. But I didn't want to do that at the expense of my wife and my family. So I wanted for her to be able to have the things that she wanted from life too. And I wanted for the kids to be able to live a pretty normal upbringing. And I felt that for me, on the wealth side of things, that success would mean financial independence by the time I'm 40 years old. So you can probably tell by the look at me and the state of my facial hair that I'm more than 40 now. But at the time that I was 40, I had owned my own business for around 10 years, had 4 kids, had a nice house, several vehicles, and felt, that I had arrived. And what I needed to decide was, what did financial independence at age 40 mean the same thing for me as it meant previously when I was, say, 20. And when I was 20, I was a little more naive. I didn't really exactly understand what it meant to be financially independent. And of course, over time and working with other people and, and living life and trying to understand what that means, I suppose my idea of financial independence evolved a little bit. But what it really meant was, for me at age 40, was to be doing the things I wanted to do, having the kind of money that was required to support my lifestyle, and having the kind of things that led to a comfortable life for myself and my family. And of course, I wanted to be able to have the time to be able to spend with my kids and go to soccer practice or ride the dirt bikes, dance class, in my daughter's case, things like that. So now, let's talk a little bit about what success would mean to you. So success can mean many different things, and it can be as simple as reaching an educational level, or being able to move to a part of the world that you like, or being able to hike the countryside. It doesn't have to be the things that I like. I'll probably be talking more to the community that wants to build wealth, and likes fast cars, things like that, because those are some of my interests. So we'll have common interests in that respect. But the reason I decided that I wanted to do this podcast is because I feel like, I am a regular guy, or at least I certainly was a regular guy. Now I've built some wealth. I wouldn't call myself a rich person, but certainly have advice to offer to people that are young and getting started and trying to decide what it is they have to do. And the very first thing I have to say is, decide for yourself what it means to be successful. Now, most people would tell you, write that down so you understand what that goal means. And that's not a bad idea. I write a lot of things down. I take lots of notes on things and keep little notebooks and whatever. And of course, by today's standards, everybody uses their cell phones and iPads and whatnot. But it's important for you to understand, at least loosely, what it means for you to have success. Because, while when you're young, a lifetime might seem really long. But in the scheme of building success, especially if you're looking to build a very high level of success, lifetime is pretty short. And every day passes by pretty quickly. And so I feel that one of the best ways to really achieve the success that you're after is to be sure you understand what it is. And then have almost everything in life that you do work towards that goal. So the thing you want to be careful of is you don't want to become an ogre over it. So you need to be thoughtful of the people around you. And you need to understand, well, is your quest for success creating a negative environment for the people around you? And if it is, you need to, in my opinion, you need to rethink it. You need to be able to have the success you want without being an ogre, right? And if you are that type of personality, and it's more important to you to have success than worry about what everybody else is all about, that's fine. That's your business. Just make sure that your lifestyle supports that. Don't drag along a wife and kids and other people with you that can't be happy because you're trying to meet your own needs and not theirs. In my opinion, that's a selfish way to do it. So you have to find that happy medium. In my case, my wife likes to travel a lot, and that's great. Creates great memories. We have a lot of fun together. But from an investment standpoint, it's really tough to recover any kind of money out of that kind of activity. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy doing it. We go all kinds of places and do all sorts of fun things. But I also, on the investment side of things, try and not buy don't overbuy on the house. Buy a house that I can afford. Then buy a house that I believe is going to go up in value later. Do the updates to the place as I make it my own in a way that is realistic for the kind of house that it is, and the things that will bring you payback when it's time for me to upgrade to the next larger house. Same thing is true for the cars, the motorcycles, the whatever it is, the things you like to do in life. I like collectibles and things like that. So rather than drink 5 beers on the weekend in the bar, I might go out to the bar and have a couple of Cokes, shoot a couple of rounds of pool with my pals, but take the other $100 that would have been spent on drinks and put that into some kind of thing that I enjoy. I like, you probably can tell from the things behind me, I like all sorts of collectibles. I like pinball machines, I like cars, motorcycles, boats, jet skis, anything like that. So along that quest, if I spend my money to enjoy my life on things that I can get the money back out of later, well, there's no downside. Because if I change my mind about it, or I maybe don't have the level of success that I was hoping to have with it, or something happens to me, I get hit by a bus and the family's got to recover from it, all my things can be sold and that money can be recovered, and there's no negative impact, at least financially, to the family for doing that. Lifestyle is an important piece of this. I think I talk to a lot of young people that really want to build a high level of success. They want to drive fancy cars, and I can talk a little bit about like that. I drive a fancy car, I have a McLaren, beyond this pillow, right? But I have a real one in the garage, and I have a 911. I have a couple of fancy cars, but I didn't buy those when I was 20, right? Little over time grew my investment. A picture over here may not be in the frame. I don't know, a '69 Firebird. That was my first car. So I, over time, fixed that up, and today those are quite collectible, so it has value. And for me, the lifestyle balance was being able to have time available to spend with the kids, support the wife and the things that she wanted to be able to do at the same time, building my own success. So I would encourage you at a fairly early point to start looking at net worth. Look at the value of everything you own, assuming that financial success is a key for you. Put together a spreadsheet, write it down on paper, whatever you have to do. When you're young, you have a negative net worth, right? You buy a house and you owe on it for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. You buy a car, you owe more on the car than it's worth, and you start out with a negative net worth. We'll start to track that. Understand what are the things that change that. And in future episodes, I'll be talking about a lot of those types of things. And just this first episode on success is pretty broad-based. I'm covering lots of ground. But as I go forward, I'll talk about a lot of different specific things. I might talk specifically about just like investing in things like stocks, or investing in things like collectibles, or specific lifestyle challenges, all sorts of different things like that. I might even talk about podcasting and how to create podcasts. We'll see how it goes. So one of the things as I work towards closing here, I wanted to talk about was how you get started on your own. And again, the way to get started is understand what it means to have success for you. Understand what the lay of the land is, where you sit compared to where you would like to be. Everyone talks about a short-term, medium-term, and long-term plan. Well, I'll tell you that too. It's a good idea. Take an understanding of where you're at today. What do you expect to do in the short term, next year or two? What do you expect to do in the next 5 or 10 years? And what do you expect to accomplish, say, before you die? And having a bucket list is a great thing. If you're going to do a bucket list, put things on it that are realistic for you today, as well as things that require some more planning to achieve later on. And if you consistently work towards, making the people that are happy around you, I like to say, be a good person, do the right thing, do that all the time, and this stuff works out for you. The bucket list is a great way to sort of help keep you on task. Help you to understand: are you making and setting goals and looking for levels of achievement that are realistic for you? So start with, it might be lose 10 pounds, or it might be go see Europe, or it might be go to Disneyland, or it might be race my first motocross race, or whatever it might be. But understand what those things are for you. Be realistic about it. On the financial side of things, do things that when you spend your money, that you're spending your money, or at least the majority of it, in ways that will pay back later. Then on the amount that you spend that doesn't have to do with payback, you can decide what that amount should be. It might be 25, might be 30% of the money that you make that you spend on having fun or living life or whatever it is. Of course, you got to buy groceries and you got to do all that sort of thing. But if your income is low, maybe you eat chicken instead of steak, right? Or instead of lobster. And if you splurge on the lobster on your birthday or on anniversaries or whatever. So you don't want to live like a hermit, but you don't want to live this overly extravagant lifestyle, because those things will keep you from reaching the level of success that you're after. So to sort of bring that full circle, the best way to get started, is to get an understanding what it means to have success, what you can do to have success, what you can do now, and what you can do later. Then the next thing I'll talk about is how do you stay the course? Because I see this a lot with young people, and I suppose I probably fit this category when I was young, but maybe less so than most, because I think I've achieved a lot of the goals that I've set for myself. Once you set out to do something, don't give up before you've reached the success that you're after. And the key to that is that you have to have a plan that works. So let's just say, for example, I'm going to make some money by flipping a car, right? Well, you have to put together a plan. You have to understand, what kind of car can I afford? What kind of money will I put into it? How much time do I have to make those modifications? And then how will I get the vehicle sold? And what money will I make on it? So put together some kind of a plan. It could be as simple as that. You could write it down. You could just know in your head. But put some dates against things. Because if you don't, if I use the technical jargon, right, set some milestones for yourself, right? Pick a date that you expect to know which kind of vehicle you're going to buy. Then pick a date to when you expect to have that vehicle. Have a budget. Know how much money you're going to spend on the update to it, and then get the parts you need. Pull together your pals, or however it is you're going to do the work. Get the updates made. Get the thing listed. Get it sold, and make the money. Well, one of the things I like to tell people is, bailing out isn't a bad thing. So you need to stay the course. You need to follow your plan. You need to make sure that you do that. But you also need to know if you're not going to reach that success, right? If the plan turns out partway through to be flawed, and you thought you were going to buy a car for $2,000, you were going to spend another $1,000 on it, and you're going to sell it for $6,000. If it turns out there just are no cars available in that price range, or the parts that you're going to have to buy, or the time you're going to have to put into it just isn't realistic to accomplish that, you do need to understand when it's time to pull out. So my advice is, if you don't have a lot of money, do things that don't take a lot of money to get started. Do service-oriented things. Sell things online, or offer some kind of service, cut somebody's lawn or shovel or snow or whatever the kind of thing is. If you're a computer programmer, write some computer programs, build some websites, do the kind of things that you can do, and set a plan, set some milestones, set a budget, and then make it happen that way. And if you're not able to make it happen that way, then you need to understand when to bail out. And when you do bail out, you need to do the post-mortem evaluation, right? Go back and look and say, well, why did this work for me? So when I go about my next strategy, whatever it is, how am I going to be able to ensure my success? And if you're not having a pretty high percentage success rate, about 3/4 of what you do should be pretty successful. And if you are failing at everything you do, then maybe your sights are set too high. Maybe you're not using the stick-to-itiveness approach where you're really putting your heart and soul into it. But again, keep in mind, you got to think about the people around you. You can't ignore everybody else, or you'll die a lonely man. So in closing here, I'll kind of give you some of my philosophies, right? I've always felt that, be a good person, do the right thing, do that all the time, set some goals for yourself, do the best you can to follow through on those goals. And the kind of my parting piece of wisdom is, I believe in life you should be enjoying yourself all the time. And if you're not having fun, there should be a reason for that. And if you're not having fun, it should be because you're making an investment in something to allow yourself to have the fun later, right? So life is for living, right? So enjoy yourself all the time. If you're not enjoying yourself, okay, maybe you're taking a few classes at school, you got to study a lot, so you can't go out and have fun as much, or you're saving money so that you can make the purchase of the thing that you're going to use as your investment, whatever the case might be. You got to find that balance, because if you are forever preparing to have the success, and you never, and one day you're going to die, and if you've been preparing your whole life and you never reach the success, I guess you haven't had the success, right? And on the flip side of that, if you're having fun all the time and you never can reach a single plateau of success, well, then maybe you're goofing off, and you have to learn, and you have to be able to understand the difference between those things. So, and I've got more that I could say, but I think I'm gonna call it a wrap at that. So this is FastBoyRambles signing off, and we'll see you again the next time with the next topic.